says it all. But I'm pretty sure that the Trump machinery, or people who are now going to be occupying important positions in the White House, might kind of be looking at Britain with a slightly different view.
And as you say, Alex, I think the video that's been doing the rounds this week is about a video from 2020 when Angela Rayner wasn't in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet, she was in Keir Starmer's shadow. He was telling me that, you know, people will remember those comments. Those comments, you know, are not harmless. People will remember them in the machinery. And of course, when we have the leaders appearing on the world stage, it's very likely, for instance, that members of the international press or members of the international community may well bring up those comments once again.
Imagine being the person responsible for potentially destroying UK-US relations with a single comment. That's Angela Rayner right now, as Trump and JD Vance publicly exposed her criticism and triggered what could become the most expensive political gaffe in recent British history. The Labour Party thought they could play both sides, publicly supporting Trump while privately criticizing him. Never expected Trump to call their bluff on live television. Now, as panic spreads through Downing Street, Rayner faces the uncomfortable reality that her words might cost thousands of British jobs and billions in trade. This is the story of how diplomatic double-dealing backfired spectacularly. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
They were in the shadow cabinet, though. They weren't just, you know, odds and sods on the back benches. And now they're in government. They're like, it doesn't matter. We're making the calls. We're having great diplomatic relations. James, it's funny, isn't it? You know, they act like a load of pathetic, sixth-form debating society leftists when they're in opposition. I kind of think with someone like Donald Trump, he'll be like, yeah, whatever. I don't think that man actually bears a grudge. The fact that JD Vance is his running mate.
Labour's decision to play both sides with Donald Trump has backfired in spectacular fashion. The moment Trump and JD Vance highlighted Rayner's past criticisms, the fragile house of cards built by Starmer's administration came crashing down. This wasn't just a minor diplomatic hiccup, it was a catastrophic miscalculation that has now thrown Britain's relationship with its most powerful ally into complete disarray. The timeline reveals just how quickly this situation escalated. What began as Angela Rayner's critical comments about Trump in an old interview rapidly transformed into a full-blown international incident. Trump, never one to let criticism slide, viewed these remarks as a direct challenge, one he had every intention of answering.
He's an absolute buffoon. He has no place in the White House. He's an embarrassment, and he should be ashamed of himself. Donald Trump is killing, you know, thousands of Americans by giving them duff advice, and he's macho, I'm all right, you know, look at me, I've survived COVID.
His response wasn't limited to angry tweets or public denouncements. It came with the concrete threat of economic pressure and potential tariffs that could devastate key British industries. What's particularly telling about this fiasco is how Labour misread the room so completely. Keir Starmer's attempt to present himself as supportive of Trump, while his deputy was openly critical, created an untenable contradiction. During a White House visit before Trump left office, Starmer went as far as praising Trump's stance on free speech, a transparent attempt to curry favor.
Buffoon, ashamed of himself, embarrassment. I think that woman needs to look in a blimmin' mirror. Maybe Lord Ali can afford to buy her one. You know, Joe Rogan, the biggest podcast that you could listen to in the world, has been really making a big noise about what he sees as authoritarian rule in the UK. Add to that these extremely sort of toxic... This isn't the first time in recent months that senior figures who are now, you know, in America, who are going to be part of the Trump administration, have been looking at what's going on in Britain, whether it's talking about the clampdown on free speech. Elon Musk has gone to town on that one.
Yet behind closed doors, Labour voices were singing a completely different tune, creating the impression of political duplicity that Trump would eventually exploit. This two-faced approach created a false sense of security within Labour. They apparently believed they could maintain this balancing act indefinitely, publicly extending olive branches while privately sharpening knives. It was a strategy doomed to failure, especially when dealing with a figure like Trump, who has built his entire political persona around exposing what he sees as establishment hypocrisy.
Well, I think you've also got to remember that you do aspire in politics to go into government. That's why you stand for election to Parliament. That's why you're campaigning as a member of the Labour Party. It is very short-sighted to make these kind of comments about a major world leader.
Irresponsible, reckless and unprofessional comments. I don't care whether it's coming from someone on the opposition benches and what position they held or didn't hold. It's just not becoming of an elected member.
But I think it's interesting what it means for other people around him and his team, particularly when it comes to some of those intelligence and sensitive matters, because obviously with the defense apparatus between the two countries.
The moment of reckoning came when Trump directly referenced Rayner's comments as an invitation to retaliate. This wasn't just a momentary outburst, but a calculated response designed to maximize political damage. By framing economic threats as a direct consequence of Labour's perceived disrespect, Trump effectively painted Starmer into a corner. The UK suddenly found itself vulnerable, with key industries hanging in the balance over what amounted to political posturing gone wrong. JD Vance's involvement added another troubling dimension to this unfolding crisis. By amplifying the controversy and bringing it to the attention of the American mainstream, Vance helped ensure that what might have remained a minor diplomatic issue became front-page news. This additional pressure made it impossible for Labour to dismiss or downplay Trump's reaction. The sources suggest that Nigel Farage may have also played a role in shaping Trump's perspective on the issue, adding yet another layer of complexity to an already combustible situation. Within the Labour Party itself, the fallout has been immediate and severe. Sources describe growing frustration and panic as party members come to terms with the potential consequences of this diplomatic blunder. What's particularly damaging is the perception that Starmer's leadership has been exposed as fundamentally uncertain. The mixed signals sent regarding Trump have left Labour looking weak and indecisive on the global stage, raising serious questions about Starmer's judgment at a critical moment in British politics. The internal tension this has created shouldn't be underestimated. Party members are reportedly beginning to question Starmer's leadership openly, creating fissures at a time when unity would be essential to navigate this crisis effectively. The contradiction between Rayner's comments and Starmer's public stance has become impossible to reconcile, leaving Labour scrambling for a coherent response that simply doesn't exist within their current framework. The economic implications of this dispute are already beginning to materialize. Markets have reacted nervously to the prospect of American tariffs targeting vulnerable UK sectors. This isn't just a theoretical concern, but a concrete threat to British jobs and prosperity. What began as political rhetoric now threatens to spill over into the real economy, with ordinary citizens potentially paying the price for Labour's diplomatic missteps. Britain now faces an unenviable choice that transcends political theatre. The diplomatic tightrope between appeasing domestic audiences and maintaining crucial international relationships has proven impossible to navigate. This isn't merely about saving face. It's about securing Britain's economic future in a post-Brexit landscape where powerful allies are essential. The fallout reveals a fundamental truth about modern politics. The era of saying one thing behind closed doors and another in public is effectively over. As digital communication collapses these boundaries, consistency becomes paramount. What happens next will echo beyond this single controversy, potentially redefining Britain's global standing for years to come. The price of political miscalculation is rarely paid by those who make it.